Hey, beautiful soul. I'm Carlene, the modern day medicine woman. And today we're going to talk about something that's going to shift everything you thought you knew about your pain, your patterns, and your purpose. What if some of the pain you carry is not yours? What if it began generations before you? Passed down in silence, in patterns, and in the body. This is the truth of generational trauma. And today we are going to talk about how to recognize it and why you might be the one chosen to heal it. You didn't come here to carry your ancestors' unhealed wounds forever. You came here to be the cycle breaker, the pattern disruptor, the one who says, this stops with me. So, if you've ever felt like you're carrying pain that feels too big for your life experience, if you've noticed patterns that seem to run in your family, if you felt called to heal not just for yourself, but for your lineage, then this one's for you. Let's start with what generational trauma actually is, because it's not just some spiritual concept, it's significantly proven. Generational trauma, also called intergenerational trauma, is the transmission of trauma from one generation to the next through biological, psychological, and social pathways. This isn't just about stories that get passed down or family dynamics you inherit. This is about actual changes in gene expression, stress responses, and neural pathways that get transmitted from parent to child. Your ancestors' unhealed trauma literally lives in your DNA, in your nervous system, and in your cellular memory. When your great-grandmother experienced war, famine, abuse, or oppression and had no way to process or heal from it, that trauma didn't just disappear. It got encoded in her body, passed to your grandmother, then your mother, then you. Each generation carrying forward the unresolved pain, the survival patterns, the protective mechanisms that were necessary then, but are limiting you now. It shows up as anxiety you can't explain, depression that feels ancestral, rage that seems bigger than your personal experience, or a sense of danger even when you're safe. It manifests as patterns of poverty, addiction, abuse, abandonment, or emotional unavailability that seem to repeat in your family regardless of conscious effort to change them. You're not broken, you're not damaged. You're carrying medicine that's been waiting generations to be transformed. So, how do you recognize what's generational versus what's your personal stuff? Here are the signs to look for. Patterns that run in your family line. Addiction, mental health struggles, relationship patterns, financial struggles, specific fears or phobias that show up generation after generation. When you look at your family tree and see the same issues repeating, that's generational. Responses that feel too big for the situation. You have panic attacks over things that shouldn't trigger that level of fear. You have grief that feels ancient, like it belongs to more than just your life experience. Body memories and sensations you can't explain. Chronic tension in specific areas. Unexplained pain. Feeling unsafe in your body even when nothing bad has happened to you personally. Your body remembers what your mind doesn't know. Survival patterns that no longer serve. Hypervigilance when you're actually safe. Inability to receive love or abundance even when it's available. Dreams and visions of ancestors or unknown places. Dreams that feel like memories of lives you've never lived. Visions of ancestral trauma, war, displacement, or suffering that feel personal even though they're not from your direct experience. Strong reaction to certain historical events or locations. Feeling physically ill when learning about specific time periods, genocides, or cultural traumas. Having intense reactions to certain countries, religions, or historical sites for no logical reason. Family secrets and unexplained shame. That feeling that there's something your family doesn't talk about. Shame that feels bigger than anything you've personally done. Secrets that create a heavy energy in family gatherings, even when no one names what it is. Generational trauma doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your entire system. Let's talk about how it shows up physically, emotionally, and energetically. Physical manifestations. Chronic illness that doctors can't fully explain. Autoimmune conditions, digestive issues, chronic pain, reproductive problems, sleep disorders. Your body is holding the stress your ancestors never got to release. Specific areas of tension that feel ancient, tight hips that hold generations of unexpressed grief, shoulders that carry the weight of survival, throats that hold back the screams your grandmothers couldn't make. Emotional patterns. Feeling responsible for everyone's happiness. Chronic guilt or shame that doesn't match your life experience. Fear of abandonment that's bigger than any actual abandonment you've experienced. Rage at systems of oppression even when you haven't directly experienced that oppression. Feelings like you don't belong anywhere, like you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, like safety is temporary illusion. These aren't personal feelings. These are inherited survival responses. Energetic imprints. Feeling drained in certain environments. Picking up on family dynamics without being told what's happening. Sensing the emotional state of ancestors you've never met. Having an old soul that feels burdened by collective pain. Relational patterns. Attracting the same type of relationship your mother had. Finding yourself in dynamics that mirror your parents' marriage or your grandparents' struggles. These patterns aren't your fault. And they're not permanent. They're information about what your lineage needs to heal. Now here's what's beautiful about generational trauma. You're not just a victim of it. You're the one chosen to heal it. You're the ancestor your lineage has been waiting for. Think about it. You're the first generation with access to therapy, trauma healing, spiritual practices, and nervous system regulation. You're the first generation that understands trauma isn't a personal failing, but a psychological response. You're the first generation with the language, tools, and awareness to break these cycles. Your ancestors didn't have the luxury of healing their trauma. They were too busy surviving wars, oppression, poverty, displacement. They had to pass their pain forward because processing it wasn't an option. But they also passed forward their resilience, their strength, their unbreakable will to survive so that you could exist. You carry both their wounds and their medicine. You inherited their trauma, but you also inherited their power. Every ancestor who survived impossible circumstances lives in your DNA. Their strength is your strength. Their resilience is your resilience. And when you heal generational trauma, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing backward through your lineage and forward through your descendants. You are literally changing the trajectory of your family tree. This is sacred work. This is why you might feel called to healing even when your personal life seems fine. This is why your sensitivity isn't weakness. It's a superpower that allows you to feel what needs to be transformed. The healing of generational trauma begins with awareness. With naming what's been unnamed, with seeing what's been invisible. When you recognize that this anxiety, depression, or patterns you're struggling with aren't personal failures but inherited wounds, everything changes. You stop taking it so personally. You stop thinking you're broken or damaged. You start seeing yourself as the healer your lineage has been waiting for. Start by getting curious about your family history. What traumas did your grandparents experience? What did your great-grandparents survive? What cultural or historical traumas affected your lineage? Sometimes the information is available. Sometimes it's buried in family secrets. Sometimes it's lost in history. But even asking the questions opens the healing. Pay attention to your body's responses. When you think about certain family members or time periods, what happens in your body? Where do you feel tension, heaviness, or activation? Your body knows what your mind doesn't remember. Honor what your ancestors survived. Thank them for their resilience, while also acknowledging that their coping mechanisms might not serve you anymore. You can be grateful for their survival and still choose different patterns. Trust that you have everything you need to heal. Your soul chose this lineage, this family, this particular combination of wounds and medicine because you are capable of transforming it. Beautiful soul, you are not responsible for healing everyone's trauma, but you are responsible for healing what lives in your own system. And when you do that work, when you break the patterns that have been running for generations, you free not just yourself, but your entire lineage. The pain you carry is not punishment, it's information. The patterns you inherited are not permanent. They're just waiting for someone brave enough to transform them. And remember this, as much as we carry the trauma, we also come with the good stuff, the gifts, the light, the magic that our ancestors carry. Their resilience, their wisdom, their unbreakable spirit flows through your veins. You inherited their wounds, but you also inherited their medicine. You are that someone. You are the ancestor your great-great-grandchildren will thank. You are the cycle breaker, the pattern disruptor, the one who turns inherited wounds into medicine. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might be carrying generational wounds. Let's normalize the conversation about inherited trauma and collective healing. And until next time, remember, you didn't come here to carry this pain forever. You came here to transform it into wisdom, strength, and medicine for the world. Until next time, we'll be seeing you.